On the night of August 21st, 1955, a small farmhouse in rural Kentucky became the epicenter of one of the most bizarre and debated UFO encounters in history. This event, known as the Hopkinsville Encounter, involved multiple witnesses, a prolonged gunfight, and claims of extraterrestrial beings, yet it left behind no physical evidence. Decades later, it continues to captivate and mystify. The Sutton family resided in a modest farmhouse located between the unincorporated communities of Kelly and Hopkinsville in Christian County, Kentucky. The farmhouse sat on a rural plot of land, isolated enough to feel the serenity of the country, but close enough to neighbors for help should it be needed. That night, the household included Glennie Langford, her children, 2 sons-in-law, their wives, a brother-in-law, and family friend Billy Ray Taylor and his wife June. It was a typical evening of togetherness and laughter, until something incredibly strange and terrifying would take place, forever changing their lives. At around 7 p.m., the family gathered in the house to enjoy a quiet evening together. The sounds of the nearby woods were the only noise breaking the silence. The evening began as any other, but it didn't stay that way for long. The events that followed would test their courage, sanity, and perceptions of reality. Billy Ray Taylor, who was staying with the family, stepped outside to fetch water from the well. It was then that he saw something that would defy logic. In the dark, he noticed a bright, silvery object descending from the sky. The object was glowing, shining in hues of silver, green, and blue, casting an eerie glow across the landscape. It hovered in place, eerily still for several seconds, before vanishing quickly behind the trees. Excited and somewhat unnerved, Taylor hurried inside to report his sighting. However, his story was met with skepticism and even some laughter from the others. They thought he might have imagined the whole thing, or simply seen a star or plane. But Taylor was insistent. Something out of the ordinary had happened, and he had seen it with his own eyes. Later that evening, the family's dog began barking frantically. The barking was high-pitched and persistent, unusual for their dog. Billy Ray and Elmer Lucky Sutton, Glennie's brother-in-law, stepped outside to investigate. The night air felt heavy, almost oppressive, as they stood in the yard. That's when they saw it, small humanoid figures emerging from the trees. They were approximately 3 feet tall, with large heads and enormous glowing yellow eyes that shone brightly in the dark. The creatures had long, claw-like hands, and their skin was described as either grayish or silver in color. Their bodies appeared to float rather than walk, moving silently across the ground in a way that seemed unnatural. One of the creatures reportedly began moving toward Billy Ray Taylor, who, in a panic, fired a shot at it with his shotgun. Strangely, the creature seemed to vanish before the shot could even reach it. Almost immediately, another appeared, only to retreat once again when fired upon. Terrified and unsure of what they were dealing with, the men rushed back into the house, grabbing any weapons they could find, a shotgun and a rifle, and began firing at the creatures. Despite the gunfire, the creatures were unfazed and continued to approach the house, sometimes vanishing before reappearing. The family witnessed more of these entities, sometimes peering through windows, at other times reaching through screens, and even climbing onto the roof in an almost unearthly way. The terrifying ordeal lasted for nearly 4 hours. The family tried to defend themselves, but it felt as though the creatures were toying with them, appearing and disappearing at will. No matter how many times they fired, the beings were unharmed. Some witnesses later claimed that they could feel a presence around them, something that seemed to be beyond their understanding. One of the creatures allegedly reached through a window screen, only to pull back in the face of gunfire, leaving the family in a state of utter panic and confusion. The creature's behavior didn't make sense. They didn't act like animals, but their appearance and actions were not what anyone would expect from a typical human encounter either. They seemed to exist outside the realm of conventional understanding. Each time the creatures would reappear, the family would shoot at them in desperation, but their fear seemed to have no effect. At one point, the creatures were even seen standing on the roof of the farmhouse, observing the family from above. The chilling atmosphere and the bizarre, supernatural nature of the encounter left the family feeling utterly powerless. Exhausted, terrified, and unsure of how to handle the situation, the family decided to leave. They drove to the nearby Hopkinsville police station around 11 p.m. to report the incident. The officers who met them noted their genuine fear. One officer reported that the pulse rate of one of the witnesses was 140 beats per minute, a sign of extreme anxiety and distress. The family claimed that the creatures had continued to appear even after their departure, returning around 3:30 a.m. before the ordeal finally came to an end. After the family reported the incident, law enforcement from Hopkinsville, along with military police from nearby Fort Campbell, arrived at the farmhouse to investigate. They found no physical evidence to support the family's claims of extraterrestrial activity. There were no signs of a spacecraft, no alien remains, and no unusual footprints, just the damage from the gunfire. They did observe broken windows and holes in the screens, possibly caused by the panicked shots fired at the creatures. Skeptics, over the years, have offered various explanations for the encounter. Some believe that the family might have mistaken great horned owls for the creatures. These owls, which are nocturnal and have yellow eyes, could have appeared ghostly in the dark, especially under the conditions described by the family. Others have suggested that the family may have been experiencing a shared hallucination or mass hysteria, brought on by stress, fear, or even alcohol. Despite the lack of physical evidence, the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter remains one of the most talked about UFO cases. The incident sparked interest in UFO phenomena and became a defining moment in the world of cryptozoology and extraterrestrial research. Over the years, it has inspired books, documentaries, and even an annual festival in Kelly, Kentucky called Little Green Men Days, where people gather to celebrate the strange happenings that took place in 1955. The Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter has had a significant impact on popular culture. The term "little green men" became widely associated with extraterrestrial beings, influencing the portrayal of aliens in movies, television, and books. One notable example is the 1986 film Critters, which was loosely inspired by the events depicting small alien creatures attacking a rural farmhouse. Additionally, some have suggested that the Pokemon character Sableye was inspired by the descriptions of the goblins from that night. The Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter is a compelling example of a close encounter of the third kind. While skeptics have provided alternative explanations, the consistency of the witnesses' accounts and the intensity of their fear suggests that something extraordinary occurred that night. Whether one believes in extraterrestrial life or not, the incident remains a fascinating chapter in the annals of UFO history, with questions that continue to linger. Let us know in the comments, do you think the Hopkinsville goblins were extraterrestrial beings, misidentified animals, or something else entirely? If you found this video intriguing, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more mysteries from around the world.